Welcome to the Middle East Talent and Leadership Podcast. I'm Ines Mokrani, founder and CEO of Matchmaker #1. Here, we talk about leadership, transformation, executive decision-making, and what it really takes to build organizations that are ready for what comes next. Today, I want to talk about something that happens after one of the most important decisions an organization makes. You found the right leader. The interviews were excellent. The experience is there, the board is convinced, the contract is signed. Everyone believes the difficult part is over. But what if it isn't? Because hiring the right executive doesn't guarantee you'll get the leader you thought you hired. Hiring gives you a leader. Integration determines which leader you actually get. Imagine you've just hired a new CFO or CEO. The search took months. You checked experience, leadership capability, and cultural fit. The final candidate impressed everyone. They've led transformation before. They've managed complex organizations and delivered results. Day one arrives. There are introductions, meetings, presentations, and perhaps a welcome dinner. Everyone is enthusiastic. And then something interesting happens. The organization goes back to work. The new executive is expected to figure out the rest. Now fast forward 3 months. Something feels different. The new executive isn't moving as quickly as expected. Some important relationships haven't developed. Certain stakeholders appear resistant. Decisions take longer. The leadership team isn't aligned. People begin interpreting the executive's behavior. They're too cautious. They don't understand our culture. They're changing too much. And eventually someone asks, did we hire the wrong person? Maybe. But before reaching that conclusion, there's another question worth asking. What happened between day 1 and day 90? Because those first months don't test only the executive, they test the organization too. One of the problems is that organizations often confuse onboarding with integration. They are not the same thing. Onboarding is necessary, it answers practical questions. But executive integration answers completely different questions. Who actually influences decisions? Where is resistance likely to come from? Which relationships matter more than the organization chart suggests? What happened before I arrived? Which promises have already been made? And most importantly, what is expected of me that nobody has actually said? Every company has a formal structure. Reporting lines, responsibilities, decision rights, and governance. But every company also has an informal organization. The people others trust. The person everyone calls before a difficult decision. A new executive doesn't know this landscape. And this is where organizations make an unfair assumption. They're senior. They'll figure it out. Yes, eventually they probably will. But at what cost? How many unnecessary conflicts? How many delayed decisions? How much political capital damaged? Seniority doesn't remove the need for context. In many ways, it makes context even more important. The more senior the role, the more sophisticated the recruitment process becomes. But once they join, organizations become surprisingly informal about what happens next. The higher the position, the less the biggest risks appear in the job description. It won't tell them that board members disagree fundamentally. These aren't small details. They're the environment in which leadership has to work. And leadership never happens in a vacuum. Different stakeholders may have completely different expectations. The CEO expects transformation, the board expects stability, the contradictions appear. That's why executive integration needs an explicit conversation about expectations, not just objectives, expectations. What must change? What must not? What does success look like after 6 months? Where does the executive genuinely have authority? Companies say we need fresh thinking. Then the new leader arrives and starts challenging assumptions. Suddenly, they don't understand how we do things here. This is one of the great contradictions of leadership hiring. You can't hire someone to challenge the status quo and then punish them for it. Integration is a two-way process. The executive needs to understand the organization, and the organization needs to understand the executive. Many early executive conflicts aren't really about competence. They're about interpretation. These differences can be resolved, but only if somebody makes them visible. We often talk about what a new executive should accomplish in their first 90 days. But I'd add something else. The first 90 days are not solely the executive's responsibility. The organization has responsibilities too. Give context, create access, clarify expectations, surface tensions early. When a senior hire fails, leadership maturity requires asking, what did we do or fail to do that contributed to this? The objective isn't simply to find an outstanding person, it's to create the conditions in which that person can become effective. The contract signature is a milestone. It isn't the outcome. The outcome is a leader who earns trust and creates sustainable performance. That requires more than selection. It requires integration. The question after every appointment should also be, are we creating the conditions for success? So this week, I want to leave you with 3 questions. If you have recently hired a senior leader, or you are about to ask yourself, what does this person need to know that isn't written anywhere? Which relationships will determine whether they succeed? And most importantly, what are we expecting from this leader that we haven't actually told them? Thank you for listening to the Middle East Talent and Leadership Podcast. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And next time, we'll explore another leadership reality shaping the organizations of tomorrow. Until then, keep leading forward, stay strategic.